Can we start off with some breaking news, which I know you're aware of? I'd like to get your thoughts. This is where a number of domestic flights between Australia and New Zealand, or New Zealand and Australia, have been diverted around the Chinese warships that are off New South Wales, and they've been diverted around there because we're told there was live fire involved. Here's the PM, what he had to say.
Well, China issued, in accordance with practice, an alert that it would be conducting these activities, including the potential use of live fire. It's outside of Australia's exclusive economic zone. I've spoken with the Chief of the Defence Force, the Defence Minister Richard Marles, the Foreign Minister Penny Wong, and I've also had contact with the New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon this afternoon. It is the case that the notice was given. When that occurs, airlines...
And according to the PM, it's not a big deal, nothing strange to see, nothing to see here. But he's also called his Defence Minister, his Foreign Minister, the New Zealand Prime Minister. What is it? Is it something to worry about or not?
Well, given this guy's track record, the fact that he's made those 4 phone calls, I think, shows that it is a big deal. Our Shadow Defence Minister, Andrew Hastie, has released a statement raising his concerns around the gunboat diplomacy being used by China. The fact is, this isn't the first incident where the Chinese People's Liberation Army has attempted to intimidate Australian Defence Force personnel. And I think what we're seeing here is China flexing its muscles, sending a message to the United States, and obviously the United States allies being Australia and New Zealand. It's good to see Air Services Australia doing their job, and other air traffic controllers ensuring that civilian traffic across between New Zealand and Australia is being taken care of and out of harm's way. But this is of significant concern, and I think the Prime Minister needs to be much more forthcoming. If this is nothing to see here, they just issue a warning and they're allowed to use live artillery, shall we say, within cooee of Australia and New Zealand. And the fact that he actually called the Foreign Minister, the Defence Minister and the Prime Minister of another country, I think shows there is something to be concerned about.
I think about these things in a very simple way. He's held that media conference in Wollongong. He's out there selling this story of Australia maintaining an ability to manufacture steel. Wouldn't you stand up before the media with the people behind him and say, listen, we're here to talk about steel. Before I do, I need to tell you about what's happened out off Sydney, where we've got live fire from Chinese warships and planes being diverted. Wouldn't that be the sensible, strong leadership way to go?
Well, Steve, I think you're dead right. This guy needs a strong media pack to actually draw him out on just everyday updates for the community around a whole range of subjects. He refuses to tell us when a National Security Committee is being called, refuses to provide information that would give the community some level of comfort that he's actually in control across his brief and is being briefed appropriately by domestic and international agencies. The fact is, you can never get a straight answer from this guy. And I agree that's exactly what he should have done, because I tell you what, the passengers on those flights between the east coast of Australia and New Zealand will know something's up, because it won't have taken the 2.5 hours it usually does to scoot across the ditch. So he needs to be much more forthcoming, because that then doesn't lead to everyone second-guessing whether he's across it or not and able to keep Australians safe.
Speaking of explanations, and one that doesn't pass the pub test, in all your time in politics, have you ever heard about 12,500 people being given citizenship ceremonies, 6,000 across 3 days, out at Sydney out at the Homebush Stadium, and he says, oh, well, I don't know how these people are going to vote. I just reckon if you've been waiting to get into Australia, passport and government turns up at Homebush, you might have that image in your head. I mean, this just does not pass the pub test. And then we had the Australian Electoral Commission showing on the big screen, reminding people they need to vote.
I mean, this is incredibly concerning. In 14 years, Steve, I've never seen the Home Affairs Minister oversee a citizenship ceremony. I've never seen a citizenship ceremony of 6,000 people. We've got 12,500 people. It's highly geo-targeted to Western Sydney. When you think about Di Lee's seat of Fowler, she beat the Labor Party with 3,000, almost 3,000 votes would change that seat. Andrew Charlton's seat of Parramatta, 7,700 people changing the way they want to vote would flip that seat for the coalition as well. And so I think this is very concerning on the eve of an election to have this amount of people who've been waiting for a long time to have the great privilege to be Australian citizens, to be able to vote and help us build a prosperous, sustainable Australia going forward for them and their children as well. They will be very, very grateful, shall we say, to the people, the person who actually made that happen for them and their families. So whilst, of course, the Minister doesn't know how the citizenship recipients will vote, but we do know that they're going to be very thankful for the citizenship that has been bestowed upon them. And it's very hard not to be cynical because it's very geo-targeted.
Imagine.
I can tell you, Devonport's not having citizenship ceremony, a couple of weeks before an election, and neither is Shepparton. It's all in Western Sydney, that should ring alarm bells.
Imagine the letterboxing that's going to go on after this. I mean, I just want to ask you about Victorian Teal MP Zoe McKenzie. She was on Sky today. She's accused the coalition of dog whistling. Have a look.
Unfortunately, this sounds like the usual coalition dog whistling on migration. What is happening in Western Sydney, I've seen no evidence for what the Senator's describing nor what the opposition leader is describing.
Oh, really? Come on.
Yeah, no, I was the senator she was talking about. So Zoe Daniels, in her, luxurious seat that includes places like Brighton in Melbourne, isn't having 6,000 people being sworn in by a Labor minister. So she has the luxury, shall we say, of making those calls. I've been out in Western Sydney. I know how many people want that great opportunity to become an Australian citizen and how lucky they and their families will be for that great privilege. And I think her saying we're dog whistling says more about Zoe Daniels than it does about Peter Dutton or myself having concerns about who comes to this country, the manner in which they arrive, the skills they bring with them, and where they're going to live. I think we should be deporting those who have been part of anti-Semitic attacks since October the 7th in 2023. Absolutely. Because we have the luxury of being able to choose who comes and helps build this country with us. And we want to pick people who want to get ahead, who want to provide for their family, who love our country, love our values, and want to be part of it, not people who hate what we're about and who actually attack Australian Jewish communities, our gay community, and indeed aren't that big fans of women in positions of power.
Senator, have a good weekend. We'll talk again soon. That's Senator Bridget McKenzie there.